Welcome back to Buckeye Talk. I am Stephen Means, and that is Stefan Krajisnik. We are continuing to run through Ohio State's 2026 schedule, an early look ahead, and we have made it to Oregon week. We are on the other side of the bye week. We talked about USC last week, and now we talk about the other West Coast team on Ohio State's schedule. I do like the way this works out where, at least from an Ohio State perspective, I don't know if it's like this with every team, but Ohio State goes west, and they also play a team from the west every single year so far that we've expanded the Big Ten. They just happen to play them back-to-back times this year. This will be the second time Oregon has come to Columbus since Ryan Day took over the program. They were here in 2021 and beat Ohio State 35-28. Mauro Cristobal was the head coach then. This will be the third time they will have played since Dan Lanning took over the program. Dan Lanning winning the regular season game in 2024, and then Ohio State, I don't even know what to call that, in the Rose Bowl, getting some get back. So we've had a game in Eugene, a game at a neutral site, and now we're going to get a game in Columbus. Stefan, I want to start here because I just think it opens us up and we can have a lot of conversations. And I do think this one can kind of go all over the place. I know I sent us prompts, but I do think that this one's maybe the narratives around it are a little bit more punchy because it's been going on for multiple years now. A home game against Oregon on November 7th is the blank hardest game on Ohio State's schedule, and why?
I went back and forth a lot. I wondered if I should tell you to just delete the blank and say that it is the toughest game on Ohio State's schedule. I thought about taking the route you took with Penn State last year, where it's like, all right, ball's in your court. Like, this is the team you're supposed to be in. Like, Oregon is kind of supposed to be that team this year with what they return, highlighted by Dante Moore. I landed on second toughest game on the schedule. I just think the Texas game, between the environment and also it's early in the season for a team that has a lot of new. I know Texas has a lot of new as well, but that also makes them maybe difficult to game plan for. And with Ohio State, that you're trying to figure out what this roster is, right? Like we can sit down and have a debate right now of just like, who's this team's second best wide receiver? Like we don't really know right now. Who's this team's second best running back? Like there's a lot of I think still unknown with Ohio State. I mean, we still think Riley Pettijohn's going to be an awesome player for this team this year. We haven't seen him practice, since the 2025 season ended. So there is that. So that's why I ended up saying second, because I just think the Texas game, being where it is on the schedule, being the environment, I think is a really tricky spot and a tough game for Ohio State. But the reason I even considered this Oregon game being first, right? Because you look at this and you say, well, it's a home game, so that helps a little bit. And with Indiana and Texas being on the road, maybe those are tougher. They're coming back from the trip to USC, which is difficult. It's a spot on the schedule where at that point, like that's a pivotal. It's also a very important game because, sure, if Ohio State has 0 losses, maybe we look at this and be like, okay, this game can't really hurt them too much. But if they even have 1 loss, let alone 2 losses, like this game is in a spot where like could maybe dictate whether this team makes the college football playoff or not.
Yeah.
And then the emotions of it, right? Of an Oregon team that, yes, it was a couple of years ago, but I think that's still very fresh on Dan Lanning's mind. He didn't shy away from like bringing it up quite a few times last offseason, what the Rose Bowl meant and how much that was kind of a motivating factor for Oregon. That motivation turned into them doing the same exact thing when they got on the field with Indiana. So it's like, all right, congrats. Like, you had motivation, but the same thing happened. But we know this Oregon team and Dan Lanning is a challenge in the regular season, right? What they've done in the playoff the last couple of years, I think, doesn't take away from the way they've challenged some of the best teams in the country during the regular season. Last year they were in a 4-quarter battle in Autzen with Indiana. The year before they lost, they won at home against Ohio State. So, like, we've seen that this team can compete in the regular season. And I think that they have the pieces to challenge Ohio State in potentially their most vulnerable spots, right? Like, we did our draft of like different positions and players in the Big Ten, a few weeks ago. And when we were doing defense, Oregon's defensive line was like, yeah, you want that group. Like, we know how good that group is. I think their offensive line is also going to be pretty good. They returned to Corey Moore, Dante Moore, like a lot of big pieces. Jamari Johnson, we think is going to be awesome at tight end. Finney, Coy Parrish, like they've got a lot of guys in key spots that are difference makers. I think we scoff at Oregon sometimes because of what's happened the last 2 years in the college football playoff. But when you take a step back and you see the roster that they put together, whether it be through the portal or the last few years of recruiting under Dan Lanning, this team is legit. this team is extremely good. This team has a very veteran quarterback who's seen, a lot of football now. They can challenge just about anyone in the country. And if you think Dan Lanning can't do it in the big one and can't do it when they get to the playoff, well, this game is in early November. And we know that he can win these types of games. So like all this lines up to tell me that this is a very, very difficult opponent and game for Ohio State. And if it wasn't for the Texas game being on the road and being early in the season, I would have this as the toughest game on the schedule.
I just think it's at an interesting inflection point. We'll have the first playoff rankings. I think they'll be out the Tuesday before this game. I think it might be the hardest. I get the Texas one because it's so early in the year and it's like first and it's on the road and you're expecting both of these teams to be better. So like that, the argument is just, I think the argument at its like face value is like you just picked Texas. I think if you're taking Oregon, you're adding nuance to the conversation of, I would say the November 7th game is the bookend of what is a hell of a stretch for Ohio State. It's the end of why we think the schedule is so tough. You go on the road against Texas, and you get to come up for air for a week against Kent State, but Illinois can get freaky. On the road against Iowa can get freaky. We tried to spend 45 minutes convincing people that the Maryland game might get freaky, but it could. They at least have some talented pieces where it could get freaky. Indiana, that's going to be a tough one, and you get a bye in between that. But then, as you mentioned, what if USC is finally ready to pop and ready to be what Lincoln Riley has been building for the last 3 or 4 years there, and you have to go there and then you have to come back and immediately play what could be a top 7 matchup, depending on what Ohio State looks. It's just, that's a lot of high leverage football to be playing. And so there's an element to, yes, Oregon might be the most complete team in college football. And it's almost like a final boss thing for Ohio State before they get to come up for air for 2 weeks and like recharge and get ready for their rival, because Northwestern, Nebraska are just not at the same level as some of these other teams. Meanwhile, I'm looking at Oregon's schedule. Like, non-con schedule is, again, it's actually not easy, but it's hard to like tell what Boise State's going to be. I don't know. Oklahoma State's probably not there yet. That's probably
they would need some Signetti type magic,
right?
Year
and
one.
So and so it's like, I don't know. Does Boise State catch a Oregon team sleeping in week 1, which is like hard to do, but at the same time, it's like, oh wait, all this rah on Oregon, and here comes Boise State. Then they get Portland State, but then you get into the conference schedule: USC bye, UCLA, Nebraska, Illinois, Northwestern. Like, I almost feel like the lead up to the Ohio State Oregon game for Oregon versus what it is for Ohio State is kind of similar to the lead up to the Big Ten championship game last year, where results-based business, of course, but like Indiana's schedule, they got pushed at least a couple of times. And Ohio State never really got pushed. And if you want to make the case that, hey, maybe that's part of the reason for why they got into a 4-quarter game and maybe weren't at their best, I guess you can add that as a variable. And so it comes a conversation of like, did Oregon cruise through its schedule and now they're at full strength ready to go against Ohio State, while Ohio State just spent 6 weeks dealing with dog fights because these are at least decent Big Ten teams. And so maybe Oregon's fresher than Ohio State when we get to that game, and it doesn't necessarily change the way we view Ohio State. It's just, that's a lot to ask any team to get through. So that's the case I would make. It's just the lead up. Oregon might be the best team on their schedule. Oregon doesn't necessarily have this type of schedule Ohio State has leading up into things, and like maybe Oregon's cooking on all cylinders while Ohio State's like just trying to get through it a little bit.
Where would this game rank if it was neutral? If every game was neutral field?
Oregon, number 1, not even close.
Let me put you on the spot here. Give me your top 5 teams in college football right now going into the season.
Oh boy, it's June 23rd as we're recording this, because we're recording it ahead of time. The people are not getting it until like June 30th or something like that. July 1st. So as much as I want to say that's not a fair question to ask me, as an AP voter, that is now the fair time to ask me, because I actually have to start thinking about it.
Well, also, if your ranking somehow changed between June 23rd and July 1st, then I want to know who got hurt on a jet ski or something for Oregon football.
Yeah, that's fair. The only thing that has fundamentally changed is like Texas Tech went from being like a preseason top like 12
Yeah.
team for me to like, I don't know if I'm even gonna have them in my top 25. Right now, I'd say Oregon number 1, Ohio State 2, Notre Dame 3, Indiana 4, Texas 5. But I'm also like Miami, Georgia conversation. Like those would be my top 7, and
Yeah.
I'll figure out like the exact order by the time I have to turn it in.
Okay. I agree with those 7, I think, for the most part. I'm still, I have some questions about Darian Mensa, so I don't know where I am
Of
on
course.
Miami.
Of
I,
course.
I think my top 5 would be Notre Dame, Ohio State, Oregon, Texas, Indiana, and then Georgia
Okay.
and Miami probably after that in
Okay.
some order. So like so neutral field, I think I'm with you in Oregon because I would rank them ahead of Texas right now. But there is the element of, the home road I think matters, and where it is on the schedule I think is what
For
factors
sure.
in for me.
For sure. I just like these Indiana's not in this conversation, right? With all
It
due respect to the reigning national champs.
It is. I think I put Indiana in a similar boat to Texas of just like it's a tough environment. It's on the road. It's going to be a very good team. There's
Sure.
some new there that we have to figure out. Texas, has a returning at quarterback, but it's like I don't know, like what version of Arch Manning are we going to get? Like we can't just say,
Yeah.
oh, they have a guy coming back and assume that he's just going to be amazing, even though he wasn't at times last season. So I have questions on both teams. The Indiana thing for me is just like Ohio State has 2 months to kind of figure out what it is by the time
Sure.
it goes to Bloomington. Whereas when you go to Austin, it's like, all right, like Chris Henry Jr., this is your first road game, like in college football. Like, what does that look like? Like Brock Boyd, you're going back home. It's your first road game. Legend
Yeah.
Bay, like, there's a lot of, I think, unknown that early in the season that, sways it that way for me. In the Indiana Oregon conversation, this goes back to what I was saying earlier. Like, it's go time for Oregon. Like, this is the team.
Mhm.
Like this is the team, Dan Lanning. And I'm not saying that if they don't win a national championship, he deserves to be fired or something like that. And we'll talk about that, I guess, later in terms of, pressure on the coach in the situation. But like why last year would we sugarcoat what Penn State was supposed to be?
Right.
Why a couple years ago would we sugarcoat what Ohio State was supposed to be? Or in 2023, what Michigan was supposed to be, right? Like
Mhm.
you brought these guys back. You built around those guys that you brought back. Ohio State wasn't bringing back a quarterback in Will Howard, but like Penn State brought back Drew Aller.
Yeah.
Oregon's bringing back Dante Moore, who's supposed to be a top 5, top 3 pick last year. Like this
Mhm.
is supposed to be it. So like go. Like yes. Memorial Stadium, I think is going to be a tougher environment than maybe we would expect. We haven't, really seen outside of the Illinois game like what it looks like, Indiana for a big game. It's going to be a tough environment, no doubt, for Ohio State to go in. But like
Mhm.
there's questions about that Indiana team that we still kind of have to figure out. And we both have them in our top 5. So we think Cignetti's going to
Yeah.
figure out and be good. But like Oregon is supposed to be the no doubt, no questions asked, no doubt, like championship contender.
Mhm.
Like if I open DraftKings right now or whatever betting app you use, like, and I went to, teams to make the playoff, Oregon better be the first or second team mentioned there with minus 1,000 odds to make the freaking
Fair.
college football playoff.
That's
So
fair.
like it's go time. It's go time for Dan Lanning.
No, I'm with you. Coming in hot, man. Wow. Man, I feel bad for Dan. No, I don't. No, I don't. Okay, little ball talk. Which position group scares you the most, and which one scares you the least?
Oregon's defensive line terrifies me.
Wow. Okay, so I was prepared for that. Is that more about Oregon's defensive line, or is it because the last 2 visuals we have of Ohio State's offensive line?
Both.
Okay,
It's both, right? Because I think that's Oregon's best unit is their defensive line. But we also saw if Ohio State's offensive line is not up to task, that could be a
sure,
big issue for Julian Sayin and the run game, right? So like
sure.
that's a huge piece of this. If Ohio State can't run the ball, if Ohio State can't keep Julian Sayin protected, then nothing else really matters. If something happens in the secondary and Coy Parrish, can't play that game because he's suspended for betting, and it's like, okay, like Oregon's defensive line, I think could do enough to make up
Right.
for anything they lack in the secondary, right?
Okay.
So that's the new abducted by aliens because we don't want to put injuries on people. So it's like, all right, he placed the wager. He saw those minus 1,000 odds for Oregon to make the playoff, and he couldn't hold back, so he leaned into it. But it's obviously a mix of both Ohio State's
Yeah.
offensive line and Oregon's defensive line. But that unit's so good that, like, even if you told me, like, hey, like, Ian Moore's got it going, and Austin
Mhm.
Saraveld's at right guard, and he's cooking, and Philip Daniels is looking good, and Luke
Mhm.
Montgomery and Carson Hinsman, they take another step as they get veterans. I'm going to point to you and say, okay, but have they faced that unit yet? I know they faced Colin Simmons. I know they
Yeah.
faced Tyreek Tucker and Blandino at Indiana. Did they face those guys yet? Because that's supposed to be the unit, the defensive line this year.
I can't tell if we've reached the point with Ohio State's offensive line that we're overreacting. Because I feel like you're living on one or two extremes. It's like that offensive line unit got its butt kicked its last 2 games of the season, and they brought back 4 of the 5, and they're gonna start a new guy who has played a little bit of football, but not a lot, whether it's Ian Moore, as we all think it is, a left tackle, or they start Josh Padilla or anybody else from that group. Or you're on the side of, well, that group has played a lot of football, and I know it didn't look good, but they're all back and they're old on the offensive line, and nobody has as much experience on their offensive line as those guys do. This is why this group is going to win the Joe Moore Award in 20. It's the Josh Simmons effect. Josh Simmons was not great in 2023. It's like, oh, they brought that guy back to be the starting left tackle. It's like, yeah, because now he's going to be a first round draft pick. So do you expect that type of jump, or are you so scarred by what you saw that it's like, why the heck would you double down on this option? I understand where you're coming from with, like, yeah, you went against Colin Simmons. Yeah, you went against Indiana, but you haven't gone against these guys yet. I think by November 7th, though, we're going to know what Ohio State's offensive line is, whether I've seen it or not, like whether it's going to take another step or not. What are the reasonable position groups you could have said before I give my answer?
I think you could say quarterback. I think if you think Dante Moore takes, that next step and really becomes a playmaker, it's like,
Okay.
can Dante Moore take over that game? I
Okay.
think that's one to consider. Receivers, another one where I think there's, some young guys there, but if they all take that step, like, can they
Sure.
challenge? Can they challenge a young corner in Devin Sanchez? Right? Can they challenge? Whatever Ohio State secondary, ends up like we've seen flaws in Jermaine Matthews' game. Like, can they
Sure.
attack that? I don't know if I would say like corner or safety specifically, but I think the secondary as a whole is
Okay.
pretty good for them with Parrish and Finney, manning that. There's not a
Mhm.
lot of holes on this Oregon team, right? Like especially on the defensive side of the ball. So
Mhm.
there's probably 3 or 4 units where I think you could make an argument for the second best, but D line I felt like was pretty easily the best.
Okay. I think wide receiver just because they got 3 guys, but I also feel like Ohio State's gonna play enough good receivers before this game that, I don't know, your scare meter is either gonna slide up or slide down based on the amount of
At
football they're
that
gonna
point, we
play.
know if sophomore Devin Sanchez is like what, right? Because
Right,
Cam Coleman, Nick Marsh, and Charlie Becker are in
right,
some order part of the top 10 receivers in college football, maybe top 5.
right. So it's like, oh, no, he's gotta play at Devin Stewart. Okay, he just played a bunch of first rounders already. He'll be okay. I'm gonna throw another one out there just because I don't think my fear level can change because I just don't know how Ohio State's gonna cover him. Because there's no one else on the schedule
Mhm.
like him, and it's tied in with Jamari Johnson.
Yeah.
Just because it's not, he's very, very good. I also just don't know what Ohio State's answer is with covering tight ends, because that's a hard thing for anybody to have an answer to, of how do you cover tight, especially when they're starting wide receiver trio of expected Evan Stewart, DeCorian Moore, and Jeremiah McClellan. Like, if he's one-on-one, what's Ohio State's answer for that? Because I think last year my answer would have been, oh, just put Sonny Styles on him. But just put Caleb Downs on him. I don't know that right now, and I don't know if the schedule and the talent they play leading up to that game is going to give me a viable answer of like, oh, just put Earl Little on him. Oh, just put Jalen McClain on him. Oh,
Mhm.
just put, Peyton Pierce on him. Oh, just put, Leroy Roker or Terry Moore on him. I just don't know that right now. And so it's hard for me to, when I don't know, if I feel like all the other answers are valid answers, but they can slide and change as we learn more. And that's the benefit of this game being on November 7th and not October 7th, or not even like September 7th, right? This one, I don't know. And it's just going to be I don't know until they play. And he's either going to have 8 catches for 112 yards and 2 scores, or 1 catch for 15 yards, or whatever else on the scale of like he impacted the game in a major way too. They shut him down, and now Oregon's offense can't function. So it's that's why it scares me, because I don't know what Matt Patricia's answer is going to be, and I don't know if you can have a viable answer for what Jamari Johnson is, because he's also like a little bit of a freak athlete too, along with just being a really good tight end.
Yeah, it's difficult, and that's a tough task for linebackers who haven't played a whole ton of games, right? Peyton
Right.
Pierce has, obviously a good level of experience. Christian Allegro probably has the most experience in terms of guys in that room. But like, I think back to the Cotton Bowl a couple of years ago, the Texas game, where listen, Sonny Styles is an awesome linebacker, but that was his first year of really kind of doing it. And
Right.
Texas was like, hey, we're going to attack you in coverage. And they were able to do some things, with those wheel routes and whatnot, where it was like, Sonny Styles is a safety, but he's still a former safety, but he's still kind of struggling in coverage here. And if you're Ohio State and it's the first time Peyton Pierce or Riley Pettijohn or someone like that is being asked to truly cover a guy of that magnitude, like it could lead, to some leaks and some opportunities for Oregon to take advantage. So that's a good shout there for Jamari Johnson.
What about the least? You're least scared of?
I'm not. And I know injuries got in the way late in the season, especially by the time they got to the Peach Bowl, they were on their like 4th running back or whatever it was. I'm not too terrified of this Oregon running back room. Jordan Davison, if I'm not mistaken, is back, and it's like you look at some of his numbers last year. There, it was I think 113 carries, just over 600 yards. Yeah, 113 carries, 667 yards. So he's close to 6 yards a carry, which is not a bad figure. But you look at some of these numbers, like he ends up with 15 touchdowns last year. All but let me see here, all but 3 of them came against unranked opponents, right? Like he had one against USC, he had a couple in that Texas Tech game, but even the Texas Tech game, he ends up with 15 carries for 42 yards, less than 3 yards a carry. He had 2 touchdowns because they were, near the goal line, and he punched it in. So like the touchdown number you see, you're like, whoa, 15 touchdowns. Like that's impressive. I just don't know if he's truly a guy that can kind of take over a game and become a true problem the way that I think, Jordan Marshall on Ohio State's schedule can be a problem, right? So I just have some questions about what exactly that running back room looks like, even when it's healthy. So I'm not too scared of like Ohio State's ability to, slow down the running backs and limit them. Now Oregon's offensive line is good, so that's I don't know if I'm looking at this being like, oh, I'm not scared of Oregon's running game. I think they can probably do some things in the run game and might be a mixture of some guys and some good blocking. But I don't look at Jordan Davison and that running back room and say like that guy will take over the game no matter what.
See, that's where I'm not that scared of Oregon's run game. They got some guys. I would say this. Can we rank their 4 trench groups here? Ohio State's offensive line, defensive line, Oregon's O-line, D-line. Like Oregon's D-line's probably 1.
Yeah.
Ohio State's O-line is probably 2.
Yes.
But also by the time we get to this game, could you just have a 1A, 1B situation? I think yes, that is fundamentally on the table.
Yeah.
I don't think there's like a significant gap, depending on regardless of who you think is number 1, number 2. I think Ohio State's defensive line is better than Oregon's offensive line. We are just closer to Ohio State's defensive line, excuse me. So we know a little bit more. And it's like, well, who's new Caden McDonald? But who says that they're not saying the same thing about their offensive line this year? So it's
the 3-4 debate, I think, is the closest debate. And probably the biggest known.
And it might decide the game.
Yeah.
Because it's like they've got guys. Yeah, they've got the center and they got the guard. Dave Luley, I think is how you pronounce his name, is the guard that like we almost put him on our All Big Ten preseason team. So he's very good. But like, I don't know if Kenyatta Jackson takes the step that it feels like everybody in that building thinks he's about to take. If Edric Houston takes the step that everybody in that building seems to think he's going to take. And then it's like, I don't know, Zion Grady, James Smith, Bo Atkinson, Quay Russo. Like there's options there. And again, part of the reason why we think there's options is because we live in the Ohio State bubble. But if everybody is what people think they can be, I think that's the best way to put it. Because if you go, everybody's like the elite version, it's like, no, everybody's not going to be elite. But if everybody is what people think they can be, I think Ohio State's defensive line might have an advantage over Oregon's offensive line. He says that knowing that we are now doing these videos on YouTube, and so somebody can clip this up. And if Oregon runs for 180 85 yards in the first half, this can get clipped up. I think we have gotten so worried about Ohio State's defensive line that we're starting to underrate it a little bit. And I get why, but I'm on alert for like this defensive line. It's not going to be like special, but I think it can be good enough that it can win them a football game like this, especially if it comes down to this group versus the offensive line group.
Yeah. There's still a baseline to what you think Larry Johnson's going to produce in terms of unit. Like he's earned that benefit of the doubt.
Yeah. It's that's real. I think of any coach on this staff, he gets the most benefit of the doubt. It's like, is he going to have good football players? Yes, he does every single year. So it'll be okay. It'll be
for the
fine.
last 60 years.
60 years. He's had good defensive linemen. It's not going to stop now. And no, he's not retiring. So let's get to it. Because you've already gone down that path a little bit. You came in ready to fire all shots at Dan Lanning today. I was not expecting. Actually, no, I was expecting that.
I was expecting you to do it. I just wanted to beat you to it.
No, that's fair. That's fair. You wanted to set the tone for just how hot it's going to be. Okay. Should the 2026 preseason pressure around Dan Lanning be more like 2024 Ryan Day or 2025 James Franklin?
I think it's 2024 Ryan Day. And the reason I think it's that is part of what the James Franklin conversation revolved around was, I think, longevity of just like it had just been so long of the same thing at Penn State. Mm-hmm. Whereas with 2024 Ohio State, it wasn't that people were like, hey, Ryan Day's been here forever and it's not going to change. It was just like, all right, like this, you've had that, little bit of window of leeway where it's like, hey, you're a new head coach, you're figuring this out. It's like, okay, now it's time to go. And I think that's where Dan Lanning is. I think it's, the 2024 season when Oregon joins the Big Ten and they beat Ohio State at home and it's a huge moment, but then you get to the playoff and you're like, okay, like Dan Lanning, young head coach, like wasn't quite ready for this moment. And then it happens again, last year where they lose twice to Indiana. It's like, all right, like that's another veteran coach on the other sideline. That's just like, okay, weren't ready for this moment. But in between, you have had like incredible success, right? Like there's been, extreme highs of winning the Big Ten and going undefeated in 2024, regular season. It, last year outside of the game at home against Indiana, like that was still a really good Oregon team. And, they went out there and beat Texas Tech in the college football playoff and got to the semis, right? Like there is a baseline of just like what Dan Lanning's doing. Now, does that mean that he's already surpassed like what James Franklin was doing? It's like, no, he's kind of on the same level, right? Because James Franklin, has had a win against Ohio State, right? He had success in the Big Ten. And when you got to a certain stage, you kind of lost the momentum. But I just think Dan Lanning is so young that it's like you had your window to kind of, get this thing going, get the program to kind of be your program, learn how to be a head coach. And now it's time to take it to the next level. You've reached these certain levels and then kind of plateaued. Like now it's time to get past that. And that's where I felt like Ryan Day was. And part of it is you're bringing back a ton, right? Like James Franklin did it in 2025, Ryan Day in 2024, Jim Harbaugh in 2023, where it's like, okay, like this, you've built this core now. Like this core of players, like this is Dan Lanning's core, whether it be transfers or whether it be, high school signees who they've developed. Like this is fully Dan Lanning go time. Like this is what he's built. And I'm not saying that this is, some kind of peak. This is the best Oregon team he's ever going to have. And if he doesn't do it now, then it's never going to happen, right? Like that's I think a foolish conversation. But like it has been building to get to this point in a very similar way to I feel like what Ryan Day kind of had going, 23 or 22, 23, kind of building it up and getting it to that point, right? And for Ryan Day, I think the hump was, getting past Michigan and what they were doing in the Harbaugh era. For Dan Lanning, it's kind of felt like getting the hump has necessarily kind of been like the top teams, right? It's not a rival. Yeah. It's been kind of the peak teams. And can you get past that? And that's not an easy thing to do. We're sitting here critiquing, Dan Lanning in the same way we did James Franklin, where it's like, okay, it's still really hard to beat Ohio State and Michigan, right? There's a lot of programs there if they were coaches in James Franklin's shoe that would have done the same thing. Dan Lanning, you point at it, you'd be like, hey, it's really hard to beat Ryan Day and Kurt Signetti. Like those are two really good coaches. But at the same time, like those are the expectations at Oregon is to compete with those teams. And we had this conversation about Steve Sarkisian a few weeks ago where it's like, listen, man, like going through a few seasons where your losses are Georgia and Ohio State, like that's, I get it. A lot of coaches would do that. We're talking about Texas. And I know Oregon maybe doesn't have the championships and the pedigree that a Texas does, but it's like, we're still talking about Oregon. And in this era of college football, Oregon should be considered a premier program. They have all the resources and the wealth that you could want to compete in this era. So, like, does Oregon have 100 national titles to its name? No. But in 2026, everything Oregon has is better than a lot of programs with history. Would you rather be Oregon or Oklahoma right now? Would you rather be Oregon or Nebraska in 2026 in college football? So it's all building up to this point of just like, you've put this core together. This is your program now. You've gone through the mud of like learning how to be a head coach and learning from losses. It reminds me a lot of Ryan Day going into the 2024 season.
I hope the Ohio State Illinois game is at noon. It doesn't have a time.
Doesn't have a time yet. I think that's a game people are hoping is the blackout game.
I think they might say that for
Oregon.
Yeah.
Or black jerseys at noon. Well, I guess it's November.
Yeah, I think that game might end.
Yeah.
And what if that game's at 3:30? Listen,
for the podcast listeners, I just turned my head and I was like, you know better than that.
I'm open. I'm open to
it. Could be. It could be a 3:30.
I'm open. Yeah, I'm just open to it. I'm just open to it. Because if it's like it was at 3:30, no, it was at 3:30 Western time last time
when they played in Eugene.
Yeah, it was 3:30 for us out there, but it was 7:00.
Yeah. It was in the NBC window. We were just on the West Coast,
right?
But when they played here in 2021, it was noon, wasn't it?
It was at noon. It also wasn't a conference game yet, which it's just a fair point. I'm just open, okay? I'm just open.
I think it might be a 3:30, but it's,
listen, I get the cynicism comes from the fact that we've been doing this for multiple years now. I get it. I hope that I just want Oregon and USC to be as far away from Ohio State, Illinois as possible because I want to watch it because that's like their first major game of the year, and that's like it's kind of a checkpoint for both coaches. I think more for Lincoln Riley than Dan Lanning, but it's just I think that game has some importance. I think the fundamental difference between Dan Lanning this year and then where Day and James Franklin were the last 2 years is they don't have like the table is set for you to go do this game, right?
Mhm.
Like James Franklin. Top 10 opponents, just not great. Okay, here's a top 10 opponent, primetime game in your backyard, wide out. Like everything about it screamed, okay, James, this game is built for you to get over the hump, and you don't get over the hump. And he fell apart after that. And so that is what it is. Ryan Day's was Michigan sucks. Like you wrote it, right? This is the, unstoppable object, immovable force. Ryan Day doesn't lose to unranked opponents, but he's got a Michigan problem, which is going to win out. And he fell apart. They got back up, though, afterward. Dan isn't, I don't think, having that. He's not going to have that same opportunity the same way. Now, if Washington's good at the end of the year, this makes this interesting. If Michigan's good at the end of the year, it might make things interesting. But right now, where the schedule sits, I just don't see that game on their schedule because you can't say that a road game in November is served up on a platter for you to go get. You can't say that a road game against USC is like served up on a platter for you to get a major football game. In fact, he had it last year. He just wasn't on the. We got to come up for a new name. It's not hot seat because it's not do this or get fired. Maybe it's the gold seat. Like take the step or we're going to like start dismissing you when we have these conversations.
Yeah.
And so I would lean Day. Because one, I believe in Dan Lanning's ability to, like, if they lose a game like that, to get back up and keep fighting. It's also too early in his career for Oregon to go, oh, he lost to Ohio State again. It's time to fire a dude who's just getting started with whatever he's going to do here. Oregon's not going to get sick of it the way Penn State got sick of it.
I think the way we have this conversation too, I think it's more of us being alert on things because there's nobody in college football that's talking about Dan Lanning getting fired. Like Dan Lanning's not in the hot seat, but I think we're just kind of on alert of like there's only so many times where you can do the same thing and people don't get sick of it, right? So like Oregon fans, if they're watching this, they're just sitting there being like, dude, we're not even close to being sick of Dan Lanning. That's fine until it happens and it happens and it happens. I think part of what the difference is too is James Franklin, the narrative around him, he could have changed it a lot by beating Oregon in that whiteout game. Ryan
Absolutely.
Day, the narrative around him, he could have changed it a lot by beating Michigan in 2024.
Mm-hmm.
Dan Lanning's narrative changing doesn't come until late December. Like the game's not on the schedule where he
Right.
can change the narrative. If he comes to Ohio Stadium and Oregon wins, does that change the narrative around Dan Lanning? Maybe for a few weeks. But guess what? When the college football playoff rolls around, it's 1 seed Oregon and they're playing in the Rose Bowl and they're playing against, 8 seed LSU. You know what people are going to say? Hey, you think Dan Lanning can get over the hump here? Or is the same thing going to happen that's happened the last few years?
I've used the term non-consequential wins is what Dan Lanning has. A lot of if you would have lost it, it'd have been whatever. It doesn't really matter that much. And the 24 Ohio State Oregon game was that. It's like, okay, it just puts you ahead of the 8 ball, but if you would have lost it, if Will Howard gets down and Jaden Fielding actually makes the field goal, which is hard to envision given what's happened since then, but if he somehow gets down and Jaden Fielding makes a field goal, it doesn't change. It's just okay, we're gonna do this again in a month in Indianapolis. It wouldn't have changed the tenor for how we talked about it. Just like how really losing to Indiana at home, I don't think it changed the tenor that much because okay, Oregon's not, they're gonna win out, and we'll see what happens in the playoff. It's the playoff losses. And what I think has happened is, and I remember us having a conversation on this podcast about expanding playoff and how that could change the tenor of things. When you let more people in to the postseason, it can increase expectations at more places.
Mm-hmm.
And so now for a team where it's just get in the playoff, now it's okay, what did you do in the playoff? And I think because of what Chip Kelly started in the early 2010s, what then Mario Cristobal was starting to build before he left to go home in the early 2020s, and what Dan Lanning has now built over the last 4 years, Oregon is now in the territory of, okay, yeah, you made the playoff, good job. What did you do when you got in the playoff? And are you hitting your ceiling? And that's why I think you're right. This game only means something if we are hitting into November 7th and both of these teams have a loss. Maybe somebody has 2 because things have gotten wonky. And now this game means something for a playoff spot. But if these 2 teams have a combined 2 losses, it's okay, this is just the team's second loss. They're going to make the playoff. 10-2 Oregon's making a playoff. 10-2 Ohio State's making a playoff. And it doesn't necessarily mean as much. You have been mentioning this a couple of times. So as we lead into the next part of this, I wanted to bring it up. The fact that there's so many similarities between Ryan Day and Dan Lanning. Here are the first 4 years of their head coaching tenures down to what they were doing the year before they took over as the head coach. In 2018, Ryan Day was the OC for an Ohio State offense that was historically good. In 2021, Dan Lanning was the DC for a Georgia team who was historically good on defense. And then he takes over at Oregon. Unfortunately, he gets to play Georgia week 1, so it's not like he gets to hit the ground running the way Ryan Day did when he had a weak non-con schedule. But Ryan Day's first 4 years, this is 2019 through 2022. 42-6. Ironically enough, Dan Lanning's season started with a loss to Georgia. Ryan Day's season ended with a loss to Georgia in Atlanta. Shout out to Kirby Smart. But Ryan Day, 19 through 22. 42-6, 2 conference titles, 2 CFP appearances, a national championship appearance, 14-6 versus top 25 teams, 2 Heisman Trophy finalists, quarterbacks. Fields was there 19. Stroud went twice in 21 and 22. His recruiting classes, this is the 2020, 21, 22, and 23 classes, were 5th, 2nd, 4th, and 4th. And they had 13 5-star recruits that he signed during that era. Now, 21 does a lot of the heavy lifting. They had 7 in that class. And that number, I want you to remember that because it's 6 if you take out 21. Dan Lanning's first 4 years, this is 22 up until this past season, 48-8. So they played 8 more games, and that's just because we expanded things. 1 conference title, 2 CFP appearances, no natty appearances, 9-6 against top 25 teams. So Day's just played 5 more top 25 teams, so he has 5 more wins. 2 Heisman Trophy quarterbacks. Bo Nix got there in 23. Dylan Gabriel got there in 24. His recruiting classes 9th, 4th, 3rd, and 7th, and he has 6 5-star recruits signed in that time. And those classes were 23, 24, 25, and now the class that just incoming, the 2026 class. I don't know, man. That's
very similar. It's very similar.
Very, very similar. So I don't know. There's an element here. Part of the reason we're talking like this is it feels like Dan Lanning's ahead of schedule. Because as you mentioned, I said the first 4. So that doesn't bring into account 23 and 24, those 2 extra years. Dan Lanning's in year 4, and he's now in year 5, excuse me. And we're already like, hey, Dan, you're going to hold up a trophy this year or nah? And I just think it's fascinating that it's a kudos to Dan Lanning how quickly he built up Oregon. And some of that was on the back of what Mario Cristobal was already doing. But again, he got there quickly. He got there 2 years before Ryan Day did, where it feels like a now or never in terms of how we view him in this space. Last question. Who would you rather be for the next 5 years, Ohio State or Oregon?
I think it's Ohio State. The problem is any length of time where you're like, which program would you want to be? It's like probably the one that's done the last 50. I'll take him to do it for the next 5.
Yeah.
But what I will say for the sake of argument is, I alluded to it earlier, in the current state of college athletics and what the sport is, Oregon is in as good of a spot as anyone, right? They have the backing of a donor with a lot of money who's a very passionate fan and wants that program to succeed, right? They have the facilities that they've built over years now. They
Right.
have the opportunity to be in one of the 2 premier conferences, right? I think that has some pull as well. It's a lot easier to I think recruit nationally for them, maybe even more so than before when you're playing nationally. You're not just playing teams along the West Coast, right? Like you can sell a kid at Penn State and be like, hey, your family's going to be able to come watch you at least once in your college career when we come to Penn State, or if we play at Maryland or Rutgers, right? Like your family can come to these games. So Oregon has everything you could need in this current era to be successful. So I don't know, over the course of the next 5 years, I'd probably rather be Ohio State. But I don't know, if you dropped in any of the other 136 FBS teams into this conversation, there might be 1 or 2 that I take over Oregon in terms of who I'd rather be right now. And that's how good of a position I think Dan Lanning is in this current state of college football.
Would you rather be Oregon or Indiana?
Probably Oregon.
Oregon or Michigan?
Oregon.
Oregon or Penn State? Penn State, excuse me.
Oregon.
Oregon or USC?
Oregon.
I was going to say Clemson, but then I started laughing in my head. Oregon or Texas?
Probably Texas.
Okay. Oregon or Georgia?
I'd probably say Georgia.
Oregon or Bama?
Oregon. Bama wanted Oregon's coach before they settled for their coach.
Yeah, you want to know who else would have chosen Oregon? The guy running the place. Sorsby stuff aside, because it's a one-off thing. Well, we think, but Oregon or Texas Tech?
Say Oregon. I don't have to compete with anyone in my state.
I think that one's interesting. I agree, especially since I don't have to compete with Texas and Baylor and SMU all in the same state. And TCU. I mean, TCU played the national championship most recently. But also, there's enough talent to go around in the Southwest that it's like, all right. While Oregon has to leave Oregon to go get players.
Yeah. I mean, the Pacific Northwest has talent, but yes. Yeah,
no, for sure.
Not comparable to like Texas level.
Yeah, and it's like the Pacific Northwest has talent, yes, in the state of Washington. Yeah. And if Jed, I don't like, now we're just like, if every coach in the country turns their program into a national championship contender, what are you going to do? It's like, that's not the way the sport works.
True, but also saying Washington like gets to a national championship level is not like ludicrous thing to say.
No, it's not. I think I do it too much where I'm like, I don't know, man. What if the hometown school just decides to start winning natties? And it's like,
what if Barry Odom gets to cooking? What's it look like for Krajisniki?
Right. Like, oh no, man, we can do every what if on the planet, man. What do you think of Summerall at Florida?
I think he's a really good coach.
Okay, that's the
answer. I don't really know. I don't really know what to make of that program right now.
Okay, that's all I need.
Because they're investing a lot of money into renovating their stadium
in the year 2026. It's like, and you're not like a Group of 5 school like USF is trying to make a jump at some point in the next 10 years,
right?
And, oh well. That's what I think Florida was going by my cutoff line. And if you would have said, come on here and be like, man, Summerall, that dude, Or Florida's going to be back, then I would have asked about Florida, but I'm not going to do that.
What about LSU? I think I'd take LSU over Oregon.
To win a natty? Absolutely. If we said one of these two teams is going to win a natty in the next 5 years, I would pick LSU just based off history. But I would also say for the other 4 years, they're going to be a train wreck.
If you told me over the course of the next 10 years who wins a natty, Ohio State or LSU, I'll say LSU, but I'll say that Ohio State has quadruple the amount of wins that they do.
Absolutely. It's like LSU has this 1 year that just produced this beautiful super team. And then the other 9 years, it was just dog, you know what? While Ohio State's like, well, we got to the natty game like 3 times. Like, what do you want me to do? Okay, that's a good cutoff there. I'm trying to think of the other teams where you can reasonably make it. Oregon or Notre Dame?
I'll say Notre Dame. That's a tough one, though.
That's interesting. Texas, LSU, Notre Dame. Those are the 3, other than Ohio State, that you would take over Oregon.
I think I said I would take Georgia.
No, in Georgia. Assuming that like Kirby Smart doesn't just get sick of all of this and say, I'm going to go be a DC for the Atlanta Falcons. He speaks into existence.
Do you agree with the Michigan one? You'd rather be Oregon than Michigan?
Right now?
Over the course of 5 years.
Yeah, but I'm taking it like the over the course of 5 years starts right now. Yes, because I just don't know what is happening there. A little insight, just because we're not going to have this information by the time the spot comes out on July 1st. I hope I'm not scooping you on this, Stefan.
No. Honor before July 3rd.
Okay.
So maybe by July 1st we do have.
Yeah, maybe we do. We've been looking into what the heck happened at Michigan, us and apparently a lot of other people in Michigan has been slow playing this at every single deadline so far. They keep going, well, we have to push the deadline back again. So we've kind of reached a point where we're like, hey, Michigan, stop trying to hide. So, but because of that context, I would say Oregon, because they're not dysfunctional. Now, if you're going to tell me right now that, hey, the time of dysfunction in Michigan is going to end at some point in the next 6 months, I'd take Michigan.
See him. I think Oregon's got the better coach.
Oh, that's not a conversation for me. What? I think Whittingham's a good coach. Dan Lanning is like one of the 5 best coaches in college football right now.
But that's the thing is like even if Michigan kind of gets their stuff together, it all revolves around Kyle Whittingham kind of helping them get their stuff together and take it in the next step. And if that's the case, then I'll take the guy who doesn't have to get it together, and I think he's a better coach.
Yeah, which is why I don't know. Do you think Whittingham's just the guy to weather the storm, but he's not actually the guy who's going to take him to the future?
We'll see. It'll be interesting.
It will be interesting. 614-350-3315, 2-week free trial, $3.99 after that. Ohio State, Oregon, November 7th. Maybe it's at noon. Maybe it's at 3:30. We just know it's not going to be at night.
Rank real quick the games, like the top 4 games on Ohio State's schedule in terms of just like your excitement to cover it. Not like what's going to be the toughest game, now what's going to be the closest game, like the best environment or the best road trip. Just like when I sit down and cover these 11 versus those 11.
Okay.
I can't wait.
I like this. And this is like the last time I'm going to be able to do this. Texas number 1, because I've never been to Austin.
No. We're just talking ball. Just ball.
Oh, just straight football?
No, you're not. Because then you're going to drop a USC on me. You're going to drop. I'm going to drop a Bloomington because it's like, hey, I get to show you my favorite bars in Bloomington. Like, no.
USC was definitely about to be number 2 because I've never been to the Coliseum. If we're just talking straight, just like football, Oregon's number 1 because it just feels like everywhere that you think Ohio State is good, Oregon, their combatant to that is also good, and vice versa. So it might just be good bump all around. Indiana, Ohio State 2. I'm excited for the chess masters on both sides of the ball with these coordinators. Because again, good bump. Like Brian Haynes versus Arthur Smith just sounds like a good time.
Yeah.
Texas, Ohio State. Again, just a lot of NFL players. And some of them who have not necessarily taken full advantage of this spotlight the first 2 times that Ohio State and Texas played each other. And that's, yes, talking about number 4 and number 1. And then 4 is Michigan. Probably.
Bryce Underwood round 2, see what it looks like.
Yeah, because it's like, I don't know, man. He's still talented. It's just, is he good?
Yeah.
And I feel that way about Michigan's entire team of like, there's some talent there, but are they actually good at football? And we'll have 11 games of evidence before we get to that game.
Yeah, I agree. I would love to know, like, if every quarterback in college football was available in the NFL draft right now, where does Bryce Underwood land? Like, is there an NFL team that says, hey, year one, that was just, I'm going to throw it out and I'm going to look at the trades and I'm going to take that guy. And who knows? There might be 31 other NFL teams that are like, I'm not messing with that. But is there one that's like, I like those traits?
Because, like, yeah, I mean, 6'4", 220,
Right.
with a strong arm and can run. Like, GMs have been fired for less. So
It's true.
614, 614-350-3315, 2-week free trial, $3.99. After that, if you're watching on YouTube, like, subscribe, all the things that they say to people who watch on YouTube. We're still not good at the whole YouTube thing, but hopefully you're enjoying seeing our faces. Big Ten Media Days is less than 30 days away as you're watching this podcast. We got some other fun stuff planned too. I think we got some stuff going on with our sister site, AL.com. We're really leaning into the Big Ten versus SEC stuff coming up as well. State of the program stuff coming up real soon. Buckeye lore. Continue to enjoy that. This is like July 1st as you're seeing this, so like I do not remember which Buckeye lore episode that is, so I have to look. I don't know. This is not great podcasting, by the way. I'm fully aware of that. That might be Urban, but I guess she'll know by then, so I don't know, because this is running on like a Wednesday. So 614-350-3315, 2-week free trial, $3.99 after that. Stefan, see you later.